This is Orange Nation Overtime with Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sevilla.
Welcome in Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Tim Leonard today, I'm Stephen Fonte. Paulie is on his way down to the ACC tournament, so he will join us tomorrow. We didn't talk a whole heck of a lot about the game on the show today, but I guess let's start with Syracuse and Pittsburgh. It was the regular season finale. JJ's final game in the Dome, almost certainly Adrian Autry's final game in the Dome as head coach, and goes right down to the wire. And Cuse comes up short in overtime. Kind of a synopsis of how the season has gone for the Orange, Tim.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Steve. It was a fitting end, honestly, to this season. That's 5 straight losses for them. They're below 500 at the end of the regular season. It goes without being said, but this is not a Syracuse season that has lived up to the Orange standard, and Adrian Autry said that afterwards from a win column perspective. He's advocating that there is some progress in terms of the roster they put together, the resources, some things behind the scenes, I think is what he's getting at. But this was a good enough roster to win, I'd say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 21, 22 games, knowing that the ACC is much better this year than it was last year. And unfortunately, they're going to end up with a very similar record to last year, which I never would have guessed that at the start of the season. I never would have guessed J.J. Starling would fall off this much either.
Yeah, J.J., 4 combined points in his last 3 games, 2 for 18 from the field in those final 3 games. And, Syracuse, barring some sort of unexpected run here in Charlotte, will finish with back-to-back losing seasons for the first time since the late 1960s. I guess in order to, let's do the math quickly, they would have to win 2 just to get to 500, because then you got to tack on a loss whenever they do lose. So
that's beating Louisville. That's
right,
not going to happen.
So they would have to beat SMU and Louisville just to get back to finishing with a 500 record, which is not going to happen. No Kyan Anthony in this game. No Sadiq White. We don't know what their status is for the SMU game. I don't know that it's going to matter. But those 2 guys didn't play, and you go to the end of regulation. Nate King's got a really good look on a step back that didn't go. Game ends up going into overtime, and then Pittsburgh just kind of kept running the same play over and over again, using the high ball screen, and had great success with that. And Syracuse on their most important possession, Donnie kind of lost track of the shot clock. First they were late getting him the ball down low on the block, and then once he got it, he kind of lost track of timing and was forced to put up a really, really tough shot.
Yeah, I was saying to the TV at that time, call a timeout when there was maybe 15 seconds on the shot clock in that final possession. Red had 1 timeout left. He ends up calling it basically a play later to set up the final play, which...
After the goaltend.
Yeah, after the goaltend when you're down, and goes without being said as well that the final play could have been executed a whole lot better. And that's on Nathan George, too. It was honestly kind of a fitting last play for Nathan George, who he's been playing better, and he had a good game overall here, but his understanding of the clock, or you go back to the situation that we've talked about a lot at the end of the Houston game where he didn't go until too late, and then this time he's shooting from half court. Actually almost made the shot somehow, but there was about 2.5 seconds left when he attempted the shot, maybe about 2 seconds left.
Yeah. And they say that you can, the rule of thumb is 1 second per dribble. And we saw, I think it was at UCLA, Illinois. I don't know. There was a game I was watching maybe a week or 2 ago where UCLA had 5 seconds and they went the length of the court and scored a layup. Yeah. And Syracuse had 4.5 essentially? Is that I think that they're 4.3 or
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. So, and I'm not saying Nate George could have gotten all the way to the basket. That 1 extra second makes a big difference, but he could have gotten closer than half court. And it's just a shame the way that game and the regular season came to an end, and now this is going to be a very important week, certainly for the future of the program. We have Mike McAllister on our show today, as we do every Monday, and we led him off by asking for his takeaways and his thoughts from the Pitt game.
Seemed like they kind of came out lethargic, and then middle to late second half kind of got their act together and seemed to take control of the game. And I thought, going into the last few minutes that, not to say it was going to be easy necessarily, but that they were in a position to pull it out. And, I think there are a bunch of mistakes and some questionable decisions. And ultimately, he just didn't make enough plays down the stretch or in overtime to win the game. But one of the most perplexing things to me was in overtime, after Pitt had taken a 2-point lead, Nate George's final shot, there was still a little bit over 2 seconds left when he pulled up from just inside a half court, and it looked like William Kyle was setting a screen. I'm just a little bit confused why he didn't take another extra couple of dribbles. Not saying the shot would have went in, but he certainly would have gotten a much better look if he had done that.
Yeah, the other thing that I found perplexing, you used that word, about the last play there was how deep they inbounded the ball. Like, I don't know. Like, I realized that Pitt was applying pressure, but it almost seemed kind of like token pressure. And I thought Nathan George could have created a little bit more space between him and JJ to get a running start. And, I mean, he took the ball from like 10 feet in bounds. Like, I think he could have got out maybe by the 3-point line, and then they say it's a dribble per second. I mean, you could get to the opposing 3-point line pretty easily there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought there was enough time to do that. And again, you're going to be running full speed, and you're going to kind of pull up and chuck up a shot, and don't really have time to sort of survey things or pass the ball or whatever else once you get up there. But there was certainly multiple ways where you could have had a better shot than a half-court heave. That seemed a bit odd that they ended up settling for that. And I think getting the ball inbounded a little further up court would have certainly helped that. And then, of course, even with that, he was still just inside a half court with a little over 2 seconds to go, which means you can take another 2 to 3 dribbles before you pull up and get closer to the 3-point line, so to a much more makeable shot than what he did. So just some confusion all around. And, Nate Kings had a shot in the last minute of regulation that just kind of rimmed out. So just kind of more of the same, and they're just not getting any of those 50-50 type things to go their way. And, they're still making a lot of the same mistakes that we've been discussing over the last several weeks.
And it was more of the same, Mike, for J.J. Starling. He was scoreless in the game. Obviously not the senior day that he was envisioning, and it's tough to watch him play right now. How much do you blame JJ's struggles for the season to this point? I mean, Pat called in the first segment, and he said that's kind of the biggest thing of the Adrian Autry experience here, that he was with JJ for 3 years and JJ regressed. And I think there is some truth to that. But how much for you has this season cratered or gone in the wrong direction, just because, not to just put it on one player, but certainly we were all expecting more from JJ?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that he's been a disappointment this season because of what you thought you were getting from him. You thought he was going to be, a senior leader and a veteran presence, and someone who he's always been one that attacks the rim, right? But we're hoping that his outside shot would get a little bit better, so that would free up some more space for him, and that never happened. I go back when I look at JJ, and I go back and watch what he was in high school and even his freshman year at Notre Dame. And I know that freshman year was cut short due to injury. And I just wonder how much that injury has just kind of ruined him, for lack of a better term. It just seems to have had an impact on his development, on his shot. He had his jump shot from the outside jump shot just hasn't looked the same since his freshman year. We've talked about the little hitch when he takes free throws as well. That wasn't there. So I'm just wondering how much, his injury has really hindered his development as a basketball player. And it's unfortunate because I still think that there was a lot of untapped potential there when he was coming out of high school. And, it's always a sad tale when you have a 5-star McDonald's All-American type that, doesn't realize that talent.
I'm with you on that, Mike. I do wonder how much his injuries, plural, I mean, it wasn't just the shoulder injury. Remember, he had that hand injury as well, and I just wonder if, the combination of those two, he just, for whatever reason, it seems like it's derailed his career, and I do wonder how much can be traced back to those injuries. Post-game press conference, I wanted to ask you about that. We spent some time on it at the beginning of the show. Red was asked about the Orange Standard, and he talked about the fact that, he even said, wins and losses aside, I have seen some progress in areas, and it sounded to me like he was pointing toward NIL and some of the, the foundation being laid in terms of getting back to the Orange Standard. What did you make of his post-game press conference and some of his comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure that he articulated it in the best way, but I agree with you. I think he was more so talking about the foundation of the program in terms of NIL and the GM situation and talent evaluation and scouting and talent acquisition, all of those types of things. I took it more as that's what he was talking about. I think he's in an unfortunate situation because no matter what he says, because how fans are really upset with the state of the program in terms of the wins and losses, it doesn't matter what he says, that fans are going to take it and twist it and everything else. But he didn't articulate that the best way. And of course, fans ran with it thinking that he was talking specifically about wins and losses and on the court product. Even though he said he wasn't talking about wins and losses. So it's unfortunate, but I took it, as you did, Steve, that he was sort of talking about those back office administration type things in terms of, the scouting and the NIL and getting those revenue streams in place and using the $20 million that the school is allowed to use, how much of an allocation they get, and all those types of things I took as him saying that, they were kind of behind the eight ball when he started, and they've gotten those things in a much better spot.
Mike, we're all kind of anticipating an AD announcement, athletic director announcement this week. I'm sure you read the story on Syracuse.com about Heather Lyke and advocating for getting the job from her perspective. What'd you make of that story and the timing of the story and her candidacy in the race for the next athletic director?
Yeah, it's not surprising that she wants it.
Yeah.
I thought the timing of it after the DO piece was interesting. Now, I know a lot of people were going after Syracuse.com for posting it. The one thing I will point out to sort of counter that criticism is that they did do one on Carparelli previously, and I think they're sort of trying to do profiles of those that they know have interviewed, and part of that is dependent on whether or not the individual is willing to talk to you. And if they're not, then that makes it more difficult. But in Heather Lyke's case, it would make perfect sense that after that DO piece comes out, she'd be much more willing to speak to someone in the media to try to get her side out there in the public. So because it's not just about Heather Lyke's candidacy for the Syracuse AD position. If she doesn't get it, whether or not she stays at Syracuse, I would think would be somewhat in question. And if she's not going to stay at Syracuse, she's going to want a job somewhere else. And regardless of whether or not she's here, her ability to get a job, whether it's a more permanent position instead of, the special position that they have for her here, or whether it's somewhere else, part of her ability to get that is what is on her resume and what the public perception of her is. And so if there's negative public perception of her out there, it would make sense to me that she would want to, get out there and make some comments to try to alleviate some of that, not only for the potential for getting this job, but also for, her future endeavors throughout her career.
Mike, one of your areas of expertise is recruiting, and we know that former NBA player Raja Bell, his son was on campus over the weekend. What can you tell us? The recruitment's rather early, right? He's class of 2028, but what can you tell us about that situation?
Yeah, so I asked him how this came about because, as we all know, fans love a good conspiracy theory, right? So the conspiracy theory kind of went that he's got an offer from South Florida, since South Florida, they were the first school that offered him. Brian Hodgson is the head coach at South Florida. There are rumors that, there could be some interest either on his side and or Syracuse's side should that position become open here at Syracuse. And so the conspiracy theory went that he told Bell, why don't you go up there and take a visit because I might be up there, and then, I'll start recruiting you and you'll have a frame of reference for what everything looks like. I didn't really buy into that conspiracy, but that had been discussed quite a bit. I saw on social media and as well as on my message board on my website. So I asked him how the visit came about to try to see if, there was any truth to that. And he basically said that, look, this coaching staff's been recruiting me for a while. They offered me early. I've been wanting to visit. It just didn't work with my basketball schedule. And we lost. Our season ended and happened to have some availability for the last home game. And so I came up to visit. He said it was nothing more than that. He liked the visit. He liked the coaching staff. Was really impressed by, the culture that he saw and the facilities and everything else. I asked him, if it's a tricky situation given, the status of the coaching staff and, all those rumblings are out there. And he made a pretty, I thought, poignant comment, which was, there's no guarantee that by the time I get to any college that the coaching staff that's there now is going to be there. He's like, so that didn't deter him at all. And I also think it makes sense from the Syracuse coaches' perspective, because if they're not here next year, they're most likely going to be looking for jobs somewhere else, right? And so having those relationships intact would help them at their next spot. So I still think, even though some might find it a bit odd, especially since there hasn't been much recruiting activity for months, that I still understand kind of how this came about and why it happened.
That was Mike McAllister. He joins us every Monday on the Orange Nation radio show. And I mentioned at the top of this, Tim, that we didn't talk a whole heck of a lot about the Pitt game, because pretty quickly this turned into, hey, Jerry McNamara is playing in the MAC conference title game against Merrimack on Tuesday night with a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. And should he win that game, does that change his candidacy at all for the next head coach of the Orange? And based on what our caller said, it seems like by and large it would certainly elevate his profile in their eyes in terms of whether or not he could be the next head coach.
Yeah, that's the most anticipated game tomorrow, I think, for a Syracuse fan, more than the SMU game, which Syracuse will be playing at 4:30 tomorrow. But you're right. I was sort of surprised maybe a little bit how many callers chimed in and were advocating for GMAC. It does feel like there's plenty of people out there that want him to be considered, and obviously it's been very impressive what he's done here in a short amount of time at Siena, taking them from a 4-win season before he got there. This would be their first tournament appearance since 2010 if they could beat Merrimack tomorrow night. And I personally don't think that the result of tomorrow night's game should shape your opinion too much on Jerry McNamara. And I would probably lean Mike Hopkins over Jerry if you were picking an in-family candidate. But certainly you give Jerry a call, and certainly you're happy that one of your own is being very successful at Siena right now, and maybe it's Jerry's time 5 years from now, and that's a good thing, too, that he is being successful in his start to his head coaching career somewhere else.
Yeah, and regardless of whether he gets the job this time around, to your point, I think you got to be happy for what he's doing. He left here. He wanted to be a head coach. He's turned that program around in a heartbeat. He said he wanted to be competitive in year one, and they were. He said he wanted to compete for the conference title in year two, and they have. And here they are in the conference title game. And it's just great to see good things happen to good people. And Jerry McNamara is one of the best people that you'll ever meet. And I'm not shocked that he's had success there. You knew that he was a winner all along, and he's going to continue to win wherever he goes. Along those lines, we took a lot of calls today about Jerry. Here's kind of a sample of some of what our callers were saying on the show today.
I thought this season basketball began with a lot of promise, and that promise evaporated. I think it's because our players, they didn't play like their life depended upon it. So this is the future. When GMAC was making his magical run in the Big East tournament, he played every game like it was his last game, like his life was literally on the line. So I'm recanting what I said about GMAC. I think he should be the next coach.
He stayed the 4 years, and he had a great career.
He did.
And then as an assistant to Boeheim, for how many years was he an assistant there? Over 10?
Yeah.
I mean, he's paid his price. He's paid his dues, and let's give him a chance. He's a Syracuse guy through and through.
I'm not a Johnny-come-lately on this. I've come on your show several times and said I thought when he walked off the court on his senior day that he would be back here someday as the head coach, just because of who he is to Syracuse. But, guys, he took a 4-win team to the cusp of possibly making the tournament. I don't think the level of what he's done has been explained. Everyone's like, yeah, Jerry's done a good job. He's done this. No, he's done more than a good job. He's done an amazing job in a short amount of time. And do you know what amazes me about this, you guys?
What's that?
His two assistant coaches that he took, Arinze and Ryan, never have coached in college before. I mean, it's amazing that he took two guys that have no experience coaching college ball, and they've done. And you got to give them some credit too. They've done a terrific job. I love what Arinze's done with their big guys, who are really overmatched by some of the other guys in the conference. I love the way that they play and their footwork and their moves in the post, even though they're undersized. My only concern, if Jerry were to be the coach, is who would he bring from his staff, and who would he hire in the staff? Because the one thing that these guys probably don't have is a ton of contacts in regards to recruiting, high school basketball through the Northeast, potential transfers, contacts with guys that played previously. That would be my only concern. But as far as a motivator, could you think of another guy that could come in and be a better motivator than Jerry? You guys have interviewed him several times, X's and O's. Who talks a better X and O game than Jerry McNamara? I mean, I'm dazzled by what he's done with your guys' interviews in the past. He's got it all, man. And if he is somehow can come up with maybe an assistant or two that has contacts that can help him to get players to come here, who would not want to send their son to play for Jerry McNamara?
Siena takes on Merrimack 9 p.m. tomorrow night on ESPN2 for the right to go to the NCAA tournament. We should mention the women's team is just kind of chilling this week, right? They, from what I understand, they've got several days off because of spring break. The players have been allowed to kind of take a few days off. I believe they resume practice on Friday, so they'll come back refreshed, ready to go, and then they learn their fate Sunday night.
Yeah, it'll be a selection show watch party for the women at Apex Entertainment on Sunday night if you want to check that out. And they'll definitely get a bid. I think most likely they will be an 8 or a 9 seed. I'm hopeful that they will avoid Source, Connecticut, just because as the radio broadcaster that travels with the team, I've made that trip enough. And I think everyone that has followed Syracuse women's basketball closely has seen that trip enough. But sometimes that's the way the NCAA goes when they're trying to save money. That would be a bus trip. The other 1 seeds, you're talking UCLA. That'd be a long flight out to the West Coast. Did see ESPN's bracketology right now has the Orange as a 9 seed playing in UCLA's region, and they would be up against, according to ESPN, the 8 seed Tennessee, which would be kind of juicy because Alyssa Latham now plays for Tennessee, and Tennessee has lost 7 straight games, so they are reeling right now. I'm kind of already starting to look ahead to who could be the opponent as the 8-9 matchup, but regardless, if they could go into the tournament and win a game in the tournament based on where their preseason expectations were, that would be a heck of a season for Coach Jack and company.
No doubt. Great bounce back year. And then it becomes, how do you keep Uche Azoja going into next year? Real quick before we go, any sort of update on Dominique Darius?
I think they're optimistic that she will be around for the NCAA tournament. It's a finger injury, and obviously it was a really scary play. So they've got to see how the week goes for her, but it's good timing that there is a down week and then they don't play again until probably March 19th, the Thursday at the earliest, or the 20th, which would be a Friday.
All right, that would be certainly good news if they had her for the NCAA tournament. We're out of time. Paulie's back tomorrow. For Tim, I'm Steve. We'll talk to all of you again tomorrow. Take care.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.